Hello, my name is Francis Fox. I'm a trained government remote viewer. I was also trained in interspecies communication, um, and in many other or all the other psychic skills. I'm not an astrologer because you don't need to be a psychic to be an astrologer, but I do astrology through my psychic abilities. Even though I rarely do it in English, I have done it for like 20 years. I've done the weekly astrological readings, but through my remote viewing abilities, plus through my communication with beings in other dimensions that supply me with information. The same way as when you have to do something, there are people that you call or call in or contract that are specialists in a field of something that you're trying to do, accomplish, want to ask a question. The same thing when you're working in the other dimensions. Um, I still have the music in the other room that's for grounding and landing, which is what we're going to be recommending that everybody have on during the day. It's a very rooting music. It keeps your root chakra, which is the one that is connected to the earth element in the physical dimension, it keeps it moving and healed and vitalized. And I'm going to give you right now the link for it. I do not use it at night because it vitalizes. In other words, it keeps me awake. It's called, darn, I know I did that. One second. Okay, that's the link to that music that we will be probably be using in a few minutes with the mantra. So I use this music, which looks like this. Give me a second. And sounds like this. That is the music that I am using during the day. And then at night, I use the trilling music, which I will give you the link to right now, um, because the trilling music protects me at night and I'm able to sleep. So we have it 10 hours long. And so I can put it on before I go to sleep, and then it will continue the entire night. Sometimes in YouTubes, they stop it and ask your permission if you want to keep listening to it. Very irritating, but um, so in terms of being ready for what's coming down the pike at us very quickly, which appears to be revelations about the existence of ETs and spaceships, and close on the heels of that, the incredible level of lying that has been done to the American public, which I think is going to be initially the biggest issue. So, in preparing myself and the Mantrista movement group that follow the stuff that I've come up with, have based on my skills and my abilities in the secret program, which was absolutely disgraceful and horrible and should never happen to anybody. And yet it set me up to be able to do this. So everything bad happens for a reason. And I guess maybe I wasn't so dumb before I incarnated that I chose this path, because what you do before you're born is you decide what you would like to do to help the planet, the community, and then you have to choose the things that will set you up to be able to achieve that intention in this next incarnation. So I apparently, no, I know that I wanted to deliver the maximum amount of information to people on the planet, not just to two people or to 5,000. It had to be more than that, because what I chose to go into was very difficult, treacherous, god awful, soul destroying circumstances. But I became very operational in the other dimensions. And now is the time when all that information is particularly useful. So I just wanted to review with you the fact that you are multidimensional, whether you have been taught that or not. One of the issues is that the people that have taken care of our multidimensionality have been our religions. Now, I'm talking about this part of the world, where the United States is. I'm not talking about the East. They know more. They did not have the Catholic Church telling them that everything that's in the other dimensions is spiritual and the domain of the Catholic Church. They did not have that. And that appears to be what set us back here. But if I am wrong, you're more than welcome to send me an email and correct me or give me your opinions as to why I would be wrong about that. Supposedly 600 years ago, the Catholic Church said, everything that is not physical is spiritual and it's a domain of the church. And that was when science started in this part of the world. So continuing on, our multidimensionality has been mainly dealt with our religions, and our religions have not really said very much. And I suspect that a lot of that has to do with our reaction, us regular people, to the information that they give us about spirit and spirits. And people don't like that. And honestly, when people don't like something, it kind of trains the people that are trying to talk to them to stay away from those subjects. So I suspect that the people's response to that information has a lot to do with how little our religions have shared with us about what they do know, or what they do know about spirits. Now, everything basically that is not physical is spiritual. So that's like, it's not a world, it's many worlds, multidimensionality. So if we have our religions that have been in charge of the information about multidimensionality, we got a problem, because our religions have not done a good job. And as an example, in the Catholic Church, I'm not picking on the Catholic Church. I was raised as a Catholic, so it's what I would know the most about. The Catholic Church has ceremonies for when someone passes, and they're masses for the dead. And then you ask for the priest to do a mass. And if you're Hispanic, they do it also like a year later, or they'll do it like even 5 years later. You can do it continuously. But as I tell my followers, if those masses for the dead were effective, I would not see so many Hispanic souls rolling around the other dimensions. And I'm not saying, I can't say Anglos, because I deal mainly up till now in the work that I do with Hispanics. And whether it's a Catholic church, whether they speak Spanish or English, they have these masses for the dead, but they're not effective, because we have worked with people who somebody has passed and their issue has been that their dead mother or father or child has not gone to the light yet. And it's a heavy burden, and they can't quite get over what the loss, but it's because the person hasn't left. And when they haven't left, it's because they have emotional issues. So when you die, you are your spirit, but your spirit is your astral emotional body, which most people don't know. Even the people that are into the New Age movement and the chakras, and they don't know. They know you have an astral body. Oh my God, how exciting, the astral body. The astral body is your emotional body. The astral body is composed of particles of emotion. If you die in tremendous fear or anger, you're not going to go to the light. Your vibration is too heavy. So you're wandering around and you're stuck. And you get stuck either in the places that you're familiar with, your home, or sometimes your business, the business where you worked, such as happened to two of my employees, that they love their jobs, which I gave to them when they were old, and they were really good at it. And they both passed when they were still working with me. And both of them, their spirits ended up mainly in the building that they worked at. They love their jobs. And at that time, I wasn't connected with the Buddhist monks. So in terms of other dimensions, we don't even do well with our dead. We think somebody's died because the doctor says that their physical body is dead, but yet in metaphysics, we know that it takes 72 hours after the physical body dies for the whole system of energy bodies, which are what give you life, to slip away, to release, and then there's no bringing you back. But we see too many examples of people that are in the morgue. They're ready to be buried and they pop up and they're not dead because they weren't dead. They didn't become alive again. They weren't dead. In other words, we don't even know when somebody's dead. I'm only talking about this in relation to alien revelations and the alien spirits. Okay, that's why I'm talking about this now. So we don't even know when we're dead. That's like really sad, and it's also very complicated, and it's also a problem. Most people think that when somebody says, "Oh, my father, he died, but he visited me last night." Well, what visited the person is their spirit. Their physical body died, and then the energy bodies get released. But that spirit of their father was always with the father or near the father since conception. But nobody talks about it or sees it until after the physical body is dead. And yet, that spirit, which is the astral body, existed always. And that's a huge issue. Because if you think it just pops up because a physical body dies, then you're not going to understand how come it has so much trauma. Well, it has all the trauma it didn't deal with while it was alive. And then it has the trauma which has to do with their process of death. If a person has lived a great life, but they are traumatized at the moment of death, car accident, murder, witnessing something god awful, chances are they're not going to go to light because they're waking up in the other dimensions in a state of shock or anger or grief. A lot of shock, anger, or grief, not just some. Most people that die in this country die medicated, which means they're not there, which means that their process of dying is a problem. Because if they're not there, who is there? And it's always a spirit. So we don't die gracefully in this part of the world. And then we do not have good practices for sending our spirits to the light, because that's what's going to get reincarnated. That's the important part of us. Now, the Buddhists, supposedly, since they're born, they start working on their process of death because the way they die determines where they end up. And they want to make sure they end up in a place that's like evolution. And I believe I said it yesterday, but I'll say it again today. In metaphysics, and the people who know about these things, your death is really when you are born into a physical body, because you're born with incredible restraints, mainly limited to the physical dimension, even though you have other aspects, but it feels like you're incarcerated in a physical body that is meat, M-E-A-T. Incarnate comes from the words carne, which means meat. So when we're born, that's considered a death. It's a death of your freedom. And then when you die, that spirit that has been attached to a piece of meat, your physical body, is free. So that's when you supposedly start to live in between incarnations. So now you go, oh, wow, that's a lot of information. Yeah. And there's a zillion more pieces of information that you should have known before now, because all of this helps you to kind of understand the spirit world. And if you kind of understand the spirit world, then you can understand aliens. Those aliens, and again, everything that I'm saying about the aliens has to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I don't know everything. I know a lot, and certainly many times more than practically everybody, but I don't know everything. Besides which, there's a lot of different types of aliens, which means there's a lot of different types of spirits. So if you don't know about your own spirit body, which is your astral emotional body, and you don't even know that you have one before you die, and that spirit is seen by several people a lot of the times, you're going to have a really hard time with what's coming up next, and next, maybe next week. So those aliens don't have physical bodies. So they don't have to abide by the rules of the physical dimension, but they also can't function so well in the physical dimension. Now, there does seem to be something that is changing in that we are seeing them from the physical dimension a lot. What does that mean? I'm not really sure. But when you have an interaction with them, they're not physical. They don't have a physical component. What does that mean? I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure. But it certainly liberates them from being enslaved in a piece of meat. And in the other dimensions, movement is very easy, and creation is super easy, and playing games is super easy. And having information about everything is super easy. So they have an awful lot over us, particularly if we don't believe. Let's say that a thief comes in the middle of the night, but you can't see the thief, but they come in and they take stuff and they do stuff, and you feel it and you know it, but you can't see it. That's a lot more difficult than if a thief comes in and you actually see them. That is shocking, but you actually see them. You have a little bit more grip because you have a little bit more information. We're not going to really have that. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to play out, but we're not going to really have that with a lot of these beings. They're spirits because they don't have physical bodies. So when you talk about the great white brotherhood, those are spirits, and they do have a particular look. They're very tall and long, and they're usually all dressed in white, um, even though they can shapeshift into something else. And then you have the Galactic Federation, which I'm not really sure what the change in terms of the look is there, because that's not really true. The ones I deal with are the Galactic Federation. We have that like this little court system. When aliens complain about me, about I'm overstepping boundaries, it's usually in a court type situation, and they are what I just described with the white and um, they look male, but we don't really know. So anyway, back to the theme of the whole thing is shocking. This that's going on right now over New Jersey and other parts of the United States and in the rest of the world. But it's not really news. It's like old news, but there seems spirits have the ability to work inside of you. And I have the ability to work inside of you. Other people that are metaphysicians have the ability to work inside of you. We do healings. That's working inside your system. But these spirits seem to be very knowledgeable about how to shut down our mind so that we don't see things, so that we don't remember. I don't know how they do the not remembering, but in terms of for us not to see things, they have the ability to shut down the third eye that's kind of looks like a huge eye in the middle of the forehead. And they just, I don't know how they do this, maybe just pure intention. They pull down the lid of the top and basically your eye closes and you can't see other dimensionally. And they know how to do that. And they also know how to erase memory. They can do things and have entire populations not remember. And that's a really interesting skill because at some point it creates anxiety and confusion in humans when they realize that there was something huge that they don't remember. There was an event that happened in Miami probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Huge event. Nobody remembered it. And I remember that when it was happening, which was at night, I went out to my deck and I went, okay, so I guess I'm going to be alone now in the end. Because it felt like something very big was happening, which it did that night in Miami. And the next day I called somebody and they had also noticed something, but nobody else remembered that. And when I spoke to that person weeks later, they didn't remember. And then they went, oh, yeah, I remember now. The only reason I was able to hold on to the memory was because I had gotten into my car that night to go someplace. When I came back, there were police cars in a house close to mine, and I asked them what was going on and whatever was going on. And then I asked them about the event. the night before, and they gave me a teeny bit of information, and that anchored it in my head. But if not, I would not have remembered. So they these off-planet beings know how to work inside our head. They know how our head works, and they know how to manipulate information and manipulate our heads. This is not good, obviously. But we are operating at a very low resonance on planet Earth. And as I said previously, we should have already accessed our superpowers, which is in that third eye, your forehead, inside there. And we haven't accessed it, and we're afraid to. We don't really believe that we can have superpowers, even though it's always been traditional, or it's been traditional for many years, that our movies and books and shows, a lot of them is science fiction, and they're basically telling us stuff that's going to come in the future. And they're all talking about superpowers. Everything is about superpowers. The young kids is all about superpowers. And what do they use their superpowers for? To defend planet Earth. That's almost all of the shows and the programs. They're defending the planet, which may be the point at which we are now, in terms of we need to understand that all humans, we may be fighting each other, but our big enemy is not other humans. It's some certain off-planet forces, not all off-planet forces. So in terms of the movies and the TV and all the games that are coming out, it has to do with young people with superpowers defending planet Earth. So at some level, they know that there's something, and maybe we're going to have to defend ourselves. But there is no acknowledgement that this is something that people can actually do. And it is something that people can actually do, that we have done in the past in our human history. And it's called mythology, which we are required to study in school. But it's only a story. Well, there's a lot of stories out there. And why aren't we required to study all those other stories? It's the ones that fall under mythology that we have to study. And I think they call them like stereotypes or something types. No, it's reality. We had superpowers, we had abilities, we had beings that were 9 feet tall, which we've seen in the cave drawings and in the different things that have been left from thousands of years ago. How come we can have all of that and we can say that never existed? What did they just paint it on the wall because they didn't have anything better to do? I mean, we've been really arrogant, and we've allowed our scientists to stop us from thinking. Our science, basically, in the United States at least, is dictatorial, arrogant, excludes everybody else, wants for time to stop. If they studied up to here, then you cannot go beyond that because they haven't studied that yet. And until they study it and give you permission, you can't be making statements. Well, that's completely ridiculous. That is not science. That's religion. So, and I've given you the example of, I lived here in Miami next to the island where they found the Miami Circle, which is an archaeological site. But I used to go there to meditate before they knew it was an archaeological site. I really didn't think about it. I just knew that it was great meditations on that piece of land that's right on the entrance of the Miami River, where the bay goes and creates the Miami River in Miami, downtown Miami. Okay, so I said that it was a Mayan site. And I remember one day when there were reporters, because it became very well known for like a year, the Miami Circle was in the news all the time. And I went there one day when I couldn't get in because it was already famous and everybody was talking. I said, "Oh yeah, it's a Mayan site." And people looked at me like, "Lady, it's not a Mayan site. It's from the Tequesta Indians, which are the Tequesta are the ones that were in Florida." And I went, "Okay." Of course, they felt sorry for me. I'm an old lady and I'm making this statement. And a year later, scientists, archaeologists, they can say it, said that it was a Mayan site. But we didn't have permission to say it at that point. And even if I had explained it was a remote view, it wouldn't have made any difference because the scientists said it was the Tequesta. You need to get over that with this thing with revelations about the aliens. You need to, you needed to have developed your instinctive knowing, your psychic abilities. You needed to have honored them, regardless of what other people think. Do you know what group in this country really honors their psychic abilities? Heavy duty business people. They don't really care what other people say. They have this instinct. They kind of, not a good idea. And they're right. And they know that in the business school. They teach, by the way, they teach intuition, but they would never call it intuition or psychic abilities. Oh my God, that's very low class. They call it creativity. That's not what creativity is creation. And creativity is, yes, you can color outside the box, but that's intuition and psychic abilities. But that has been considered very superstitious and low class. You know what? All of that has put us in a really poor position for what's coming up again as early as next week, which would be revelations, which means you cannot put the cat back in the bag or whatever expression that is. You can't. You open up the Pandora's box. So today I asked the dolphins for more information about this, and I was not looking for that, but basically they went on and on about the collapse of confidence in the US government by its population and how that was going to influence the way other governments and countries view the United States. Basically, what the dolphin said was the United States was going to become very weak due to the level of lying and the rage of the population about that lying. Now, Trump is coming in, so that makes it better in the sense that it wasn't perhaps under his watch, but he is going to have to handle this front and center and with total truth. Or his biggest problem is not going to be all the other things that he identifies as his biggest problem. Interesting. The biggest problem is illegal immigration. And the biggest problem may be alien immigration, invasion. But if it's not handled correctly, that will be causal in terms of the destruction of this country. Because the people are not going to be on board unless they feel somewhat confident that they're not yet again being lied to. So, the most important mantra for you to keep yourself stable during this phase that we're going into is the mantra, even though I'm afraid and don't trust, I love and accept myself. And we're doing the protocols. We have a page done. It's still getting worked up, but I will give you the link. And the page is in English and Spanish. So you are going to be able to, if you give me a second, I will pull it up and I will get you the link. And I am starting another page, which has to do with information about this process, such as the information the dolphins gave me today about the reaction in this country that has the potential for basically destroying this company, regardless of how good Trump is. So here's the link. And if you give me 1 second, it's in English and Spanish. So if you see it first in Spanish, just keep scrolling and you'll see it in English. And there's two. I talked to the dolphins yesterday. This information comes from them. And then today. So if you finish reading in English and then the Spanish comes, continue to scroll and you'll run again into the English. I'm not sure how the page was handled because we're in the middle of doing it right now. So we will be giving you the entire protocol, which is based on the information the dolphins are giving me on what it is that you can do to keep you and your loved ones, your family, your business safe and stable in the middle of something that we need to go through because it's not going to go away. And the main thing that I can tell you, in addition to that mantra, which we will do now, is that the main thing is for you, you should, from now, write a list of your intentions. What's your intention for your family, for your wife, for your kid number one, kid number two? What's your intention in terms of your prosperity? What's your intention in terms of your life? Write it down and discuss it with somebody. These are my intentions. When things get completely crazy, what happens is people go into survival mode. And that list of your important intentions gets put away. You don't even remember it. You can't do that. Your mind creates reality. What do you think those false flags are all about? To pull you away from your intentions. So I'm not saying that this thing with the aliens and revelations is a false flag at all. But whatever happens, you have to be continuously going back to that list and vitalizing those intentions, not allowing the process of revelation or the false flags or what people say or your fear that you feel, that cannot deviate you from your intentions. The intentions that you wrote down before you were so frightened, not the intentions you write down once stuff starts to happen. What are your intentions? Do you even know? Well, yeah, no, that's not the way it works. If you really want what you want, you have to be so clear about it. Well, but I'm not sure I can get it. You create your reality. And it's that insecurity about creating that has you not pointing into that vector and vitalizing it to where your intention gets created. You have to be clear. Now, you may want a new job and not know what that job is going to be. That's okay. You do an intention of having a job that's wonderful. And you say to God, wonderful means close to home. I don't have to do a lot of driving. I'm making enough money to where I don't have to worry. And I've got great works, whatever it is that a great job is. You just kind of throw it out to God mentally one time. But your intention, the wording of it has to be very clear and as pointed and as short as possible. And that list, you can't lose it. When things get completely crazy, you say that the world is upside down. Yeah, but they can't take away the fact that on this planet, your intention creates your reality. Don't forget that. Make that list. Okay. So when I said superstitious people, low class people are the ones that's the way they've kept people under control, is by things that can really make a difference, making them like distasteful. You cannot imagine how bothered my family is by the fact that I'm a psychic. And I use remote viewing because there's more respect for that. It sounds very male, right? In the military. But psychic, people spit on you. And I always tell people I have a university degree because if not, oh my God. And I earn a very nice income, thank you. And that helps to give me more respect. But if it was just simply psychic, they'd spit on me as people walk past me. Ah, interesting. But the government doesn't spit on people who do that. They control them. And throughout history, the people that were really psychic were held in very high regard. Not today, but very purposely in order to have their abilities not available to everybody else. Okay. Let us go ahead and do a mantra. The first mantra that the dolphins recommended. And again, you can keep going back to this page every 2 or 3 days. The link that I put up, which I will put up again. And the link, this page has English and Spanish. Oh my God. I am hoping that they have English and Spanish. No, it doesn't. Okay, see, I'm not great, boss. I didn't give her good instructions. This is my fault. This is absolutely my fault. So here's the page, and I will give her the instructions so that the English, which we do have, give me a second. Oh, let me just open it up. I'll write it afterwards. No. Okay. Okay, I will get that written up and make sure that the English gets put on that page. Okay, so we're going to do this mantra and close this out. Meanwhile, while you wait for revelations or whatever it is that's going to happen, get out that document on your computer or by hand and start writing down your intentions. Make the intentions very short and concise. You don't have to give details. Your contention can be sound very generic, but apart from that, you tell God what it is that a miraculous job means: schedule, distance, money, whatever. You don't have to put it in the words of the intention. God will remember, believe me. Okay, so the mantra is, let's see if I didn't make any spelling mistakes. We'll see. Even though we're afraid and don't trust, we are afraid and don't trust. I love and accept myself. And I'm going to put the music, which is the music that I am now listening to all day long, that's for the root chakra, which is in between your legs, which is the one that grounds you, roots you, gives you stability on the physical dimension, and the one that in the Lord's Prayer, they refer to it, rather than saying deliver us from evil, in the Lord's Prayer original in Aramaic, it says help us to be in the moment, which means rooted and grounded. What that wonderful man, the power of now, the power of now is you're here, right now. You're rooted, you're grounded in this moment. Your mind is not also in the future, the past, whatever. Okay, so this is the music I'm going to put on now, and I will put up the link. I think I did it earlier. I put up the link to the music, which is called Rooting. Let's do 10 minutes, but check and see how you feel from 1 to 10. 1, you feel god awful. 10, you feel great. How do you feel? And now let's put the dress up, which is going to be part of the protocol. How does it look? It's not too shiny to me today. It's the same photograph, and yet if you're in a really bad place, you're going to see it a lot darker. A lot of the kids see it blue and black, which is not good because this dress is white and gold. And you can find it on the internet under the words controversial white and gold dress. Print it up and look at it, and you'll see how, depending on your mood, that's the color the dress is. What does that mean? This is a white and gold dress. Or almost all the kids, according to my followers, if they show a room full of kids that come to play with their kids and they show them this dress, all of them see it blue and black, which means they're not our children. Our grandchildren are not going to be able to see the gold in life, and we're entering the golden age because of the low frequency that they have. Lack of contact with nature, too much radiation, all the rest of that. We're not going to go into that right now because I'll start to cry. So let's go ahead and do 10 minutes and check, and you'll check afterwards to see how much better you feel. Okay. So we're going to put together a mantra as part of the protocols, the Fox protocols for alien revelations for Trump to give him the strength to deal with this because he's going to have to deal with continuing a government that has lied through their teeth to the public. Also, look how interesting and how flexible you're going to have to be. I have to decide the artwork and the mood for all these messages that I'm getting from the dolphins. I mean, why on earth would I come up with them myself if I have um, beings that I can refer to and that can give me a level of information I cannot reach on my own? The same way, if you're going to go to trial, you're not going to go and represent yourself because you have somebody that studied who knows how many years and has so many years of experience, a lawyer that specializes in that particular type of law. That's the person that you rely on, you let speak for you. Same thing with what I'm doing. But the people that I speak to, the spirits that I speak to, we're familiar with them in the form of a dolphin. So I have many spirit guides. We have an entire SWAT team of spiritual beings, which I'll put up very briefly, that help us. I'm talking about the Mantrista movement, that help us when we get into trouble, when we are getting attacked spiritually, etc. There's more of them than this that you see on screen, and we didn't choose them. We were doing work in the other dimensions, and they would show up individually and help out. And then if they helped out several times, we felt like, hey, this is part of our SWAT team. This is part of our the same way you have a lawyer and you have a banker and you have a doctor and you may have a stockbroker, same thing in the other dimensions. So I have to choose how I want my posts and what I put out to you that the dolphins gave me. What's it supposed to look like? Well, I think it should have the dolphins. Now, how many modern people are going to say, well, look at what she's into? No, I'm being legitimate. This is where I'm getting my information from consciousness that on this planet, many times, is flowing inside the body of a physical dolphin. But 30% of the people on planet Earth, that same energy is flowing through their bodies, such as me. Elon Musk is a dolphin. I don't know if he accepts that, but it's so easy to see. For me, a lot of people are angelic. So if I'm going to put it out, I'm not going to do to you what the government is doing to you, which is play games. And I would love to play games and have my posts look very scientific and very formal and very business. But that's not the quality of the beings that are giving me this information that until now everybody has loved and respected the information from these beings that are we call dolphins. So here we go with the whole game thing. Are you going to make people continue to play games with you? Does everything have to be put through the filter of modern life? It can't be, because look at where it got us. A total disconnect from the other dimensional parts of ourselves, because each one of you has a part of you in other dimensions that is off planet. You don't know that. Oh my God, how could that possibly be? Well, you know what it is? It is. So, you know what? I made the decision. I'm putting it out with the whole thing with the cute dolphin and then these incredible messages, because that's the reality. And if I start to manipulate, a lot of times I hold back certain things. And when I started this chat, I was like, now what do I do? I can't lie. I don't want to hold back. So I'm just saying everything, which may be the reason why we have so few people looking at it. They can look at it later and go back, you know what? Maybe we should have listened to her. It's not easy. The gap between what we, the public, has been allowed to know and what is really happening is so big that I could see where we are basically going to trash governmental figures. But we don't have an option because they're the ones that are in charge right now. So we're going to do a mantra for Trump. Okay? So that's it. We'll see you back again in a couple of days. Appreciate it. I'm Frances Fox, and please follow us in terms of the podcast and share if you find interesting what it is that we're saying. Our podcast is on Spotify and iTunes. Frances Fox, News from Other Dimensions. Bye.